I will start my slides. Okay, good morning everyone. It's a really big pleasure to be in this very beautiful castle, and it's a huge pleasure to introduce some practicals and best practices from Helsinki, from Seurasaari Museum. I work at the National Museum of Finland as the head of a unit that maintains and operates 3 museums. The National Museum of Finland consists of 7 museums and 2 castles, and it presents Finnish history from the Stone Age to the present day. Most of my working hours are spent at the Open-Air Museum of Seurasaari, but I also work with Tamminiemi. You can see it right in this picture. It is the former home museum of President Urho Kekkonen, and Vitresk in the left, which is the atelier home of architects Geselius, Lindgren and Saarinen. And all 3 museums are really nice museums. But my background is in ethnology, so I will tell about the Seurasaari Open-Air Museum now. And my introduction is sort of somewhat of a curatorial introduction to the topics. As an ethnologist, naturally I work a lot with architects and conservators, but my sort of point of view is from that direction. Seurasaari Open-Air Museum was founded in 1909, and the museum is open during the summer season, and we have about 50,000 visitors a year. And we present Finnish rural life quite similarly as you do in this nice open-air museum of Latvia as well. Our oldest building is the church from Karuna, from southern Finland. It's from year 1685, but most of the buildings date from the 19th century, so that is definitely the oldest building we have. All the buildings are original, we don't have replicas in the museum. I have quite a long history with Seurasaari Open-Air Museum. I started working there as a student in the university in 1999, and although I have worked in several other museums during my career, I have had a soft spot for open-air museums for a long time. At the National Museum of Finland, it's crucial for us to ensure the best possible accessibility. This is one of our most important and guiding principles. And in this presentation, I will focus on a few examples, mainly related to physical accessibility. Naturally, we take all aspects of accessibility into account in our work, but within a 20-minute presentation, it is not possible to cover every aspect of this important topic. In general, open-air museums are challenging environments in many ways, and accessibility can be particularly really problematic. Even once visitors manage to reach the site, they are often faced with numerous obstacles, such as rough surfaces, tree roots, doorsteps, and narrow stairways. The list is long, but those were just few examples. There may also be long distances to walk and an ever-present risk of bad weather. Structural changes to museum buildings are very rarely possible. The architecture of our vernacular buildings is delicate, and it is usually impossible to install elevators or wooden stairways without compromising the historical character of the buildings. The first person a museum visitor encounters is extremely important. It is usually not the museum director or a curator. Very often, the first point of contact is the person working at the ticket kiosk. As the saying goes, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and this is very true. Front of house staff, such as guides, cafe employees, and shop staff play a crucial role, including in matters of accessibility as well. At the Seurasaari Open-Air Museum, almost everyone who works directly with visitors is a seasonal employee. They do not have the same level of experience, knowledge, or skills as permanent staff, which means we must pay particular attention to the recruitment process and to proper induction and training. of that seasonal stuff. Most of our guides are students or recent university graduates. Their motivation is high, and today young people generally have excellent language skills. And I am genuinely happy to work with this group. They bring fresh energy and perspective to the museum. That is a very big pleasure to work with those youngsters. In the museum buildings, we do not use text panels, posters, or signs inside the museum buildings. Instead, we encourage our visitors to communicate with our guides. In this sense, the guides are our superpower. And once again, I would like to emphasize the importance of their training. That is something we really want to focus on and we really need to concentrate to. In the National Museum of Finland, we have created concept papers for all of our museums. These documents serve as guidelines for how we work and what we prioritize. In the concept papers, we have, for example, defined our main target audiences, and they also guide how and to whom we market our services, what kinds of programs our museum educators are planning, and which audiences we prioritize most. In principle, the museum's offerings include something for everyone, but it's necessary to define and prioritize the key target groups. One key decision we have made is that Seurasaari Open-Air Museum is so-called digital-free museum. This means that we believe the museum is attractive enough without digital gadgets or ultra-modern exhibition techniques, and that the role of the guide is central in the Seurasaari Museum. This does not mean that we follow this principle in an entirely rigid way. For example, a few years ago, well actually almost 10 years ago, we hosted a contemporary art exhibition that included various digital elements. That was no problem for us, but it was an exception. And also we do have like 1 or 2 iPads or similar gadgets in such places where there are no guides to explain things, but generally we are digital free museum. And I would also like to mention that we have a mobile guiding also, which can be used like throughout the year, and it has several languages, but still the principle is to be non-digital one. Because in the National Museum of Finland, it will be reopened next year. I mean, the National Museum of Finland, it will have massive digital things. So basically, I'm quite happy that there is also another kind of alternative to the visitors to have. But the general guideline when we are planning exhibitions and programs is that we are avoiding using the latest technology. And like most open-air museums, we do believe in printed maps, like this. And we do think that they are by far the best way to navigate the museum area. And we are publishing a new printed map every year, and we are sharing it to everybody who wants to have it. You don't need to buy the ticket to get the map, because it's sort of an advertisement as well. And I do believe that we will carry that way for quite a long time. I cannot see the future, at least close future, without these maps. These are really crucial for museum visitors to have. But next I will introduce some examples from the Seurasaari Open-Air Museum to show how we have made the museum somewhat more accessible in recent years. And I have few examples, and one of them are the handrails. And here we have 2 pictures. The black and white picture is the old one, and the picture in the left it's from last year, I guess. Handrails are very often needed in historic buildings, and we have installed several new ones recently. And actually I'm quite pleased with the results. And for example, the church example is showing we have same examples also in another buildings. And when we were making those handrails, we decided to use a traditional blacksmith to produce those handrails with very traditional techniques, and I think they look elegant, and the grip of those handrails is really stable and safe. And for example, the church is quite important and place for those handrails because we do have quite a lot visitors over that in that building, and we are also arranging like weddings and stuff you most probably know also from your museum. So that was one of the places we decided that we need to have those new handrails. And there is another picture which probably shows more better way those handrails I'm introducing. And also the stepping stones you can see in the left are some modernizations we have made in recent years. And as you can see, we have like 3 stepping stones in the picture in the left. So when you are using the handrail, you are also able to step on that stone, which is really steady, and it's quite easy to climb up into the museum building by using those. Sorry. Of course, we inform our staff that these are not the original features of the houses, sorry, because we also have a responsibility to serve as a national example of vernacular architecture from bygone days, and we don't want to give the expression that these were original features in the church, so they are like museum technical things that has been added recently into those buildings. Okay, another example is the lighting. Seurasaari is open only during the summertime, and as we know, summers in the north are very bright, and most of the time natural light is sufficient, and the light coming through small windows and shutters makes actually the interiors stunningly beautiful. One of the best moments in those buildings are usually afternoons in the summertime when the light comes in right direction and there is no artificial light at all. So I'm very happy that we are not having too many artificial lights. But however, on rainy or cloudy days, there are moments when the buildings can be quite dark. And so far, we have installed only a few electric lights in the most problematic areas. And I have found this to be rather challenging. When there is a lot of light surfaces like when there is not a lot of not natural light, the surfaces that are made of unpainted wood, they can appear very blotchy or uneven, and we are currently exploring solutions together with our architects to improve lighting on narrow staircases, and that is mainly because of the safety reasons. In some cases, we are borrowing flashlights for the visitors when they are looking into particular dark areas, and I think this is better solution than to have really cheap sort of lighting system, because it sort of spoils the whole situation quite a lot. So it is clear that the proper lighting solutions does require expert knowledge, and in the future and the next few years we are working in some examples to get some artificial light, but it's quite hard thing to do. And it is always challenging to improve accessibility in historical museum buildings retrospectively, as a museum professionals, you all know. One point is that I believe that we should always collaborate with organizations such as the Threshold Association in Finland, which is a cross-disability organization that focuses on the fundamental human rights of persons with disabilities. And this Threshold Association is offering services, and they are having experts who are specializing in accessibility issues, and you can invite them to come to your museum and they can go through some accessibility solutions. Of course, we need to pay a little bit for them, but it has always been worth doing that because they are, for example, if there is somebody who is using like a wheelchair, it doesn't make too much sense for me, for example, to take a wheelchair and try to use it because we can also use somebody who is using the wheelchair in the real life. So we have quite good experiences working with them. And I can share one sort of negative example from the Seurasaari Museum. We did build an alternative route to one of our buildings, and the idea was that it could be used by wheelchair users when the main route had slippery rocks and some other obstacles. So we wanted to make an alternative route for those, which is a little bit longer and it doesn't enter the building from the sort of main direction. And however, when a visitor arrived using a wheelchair, he had informed us earlier that he or she will be coming, and we told that we have this alternative route. And when the person came into the place, we did realize that the narrow wheels of the wheelchair, they did sink into the ground in that route. And actually the route then was practically unusable until we made some improvements for that route. We had to sort of like pressure it more so that it won't sink into the soil, the wheelchair. So that was not a very proud moment for us, but we did learn from that mistake. And of course, the guest who came understood the situation, but nobody realized how thick the ground must be to avoid that kind of a problem. So I've been telling about the buildings we have had for a long time in the museum, but we do have a new building. This build has not been taken from the museum. It is of the recent building in situ at its original place in Hyvinkää, maybe 50-60 kilometers north from Helsinki. The summer cottage building was transported and re-erected on the site last autumn, and it will be open to the public before midsummer this year. 1 week before the midsummer, we are going to open it for the public. And next, I will briefly introduce some of the accessibility-related solutions used in this very building. The house is not vernacular house, but still it's the latest example I can show you. So I wanted to introduce a few solutions for you next. The summer cottage was built 1953, and it has undergone some modernizations over the years, but the architecture remains largely the same as when it was originally built, so not very big changes has been made to this summer cottage. And here you can see the cottage at the original place in some other angle. And in the picture in the right, you can see the balcony railings, which are only about 50 centimeters high. You can see that the balconies are ending around here. And you can understand that if we would have the cottage in that way into the museum, it would be very dangerous for somebody who would go backwards and would fall down from the balcony. That was an obvious safety risk. We realized already when we were searching for the cottage and when we found this one. And also, the doors to the cottage were very narrow. And with the original doors, it would have been extremely difficult to enter the building when somebody was using, for example, a wheelchair. As you can see, here is like one door, one narrow one, and there is another route, and there are stairs you need to climb to this cottage. So it was crystal clear thing that some changes had to be made before the building could be opened to the public. And we wanted to implement these technical solutions from the very beginning, as solutions added later are often more expensive and less successful ones. And fortunately, we do have an excellent team, and I am very pleased with the solutions we arrived at, and here are a few examples. Generally, the yard is one of them. The ground surface at Seurasaari is really challenging. This is now a picture from the museum. The normal surface at Seurasaari Island is challenging, and like I said earlier, it's a very common feature in open-air museums. And with this new building, we had an opportunity to address this issue more carefully. And you can see the result, it's quite good. We also wanted to protect the surrounding nature when we were erecting the summer cottage to the museum. The Seurasaari Island is a very popular spot because of its nature. Many people are coming to the island just to enjoy the nature, and they are very careful. They are observing, is the museum doing something for the trees? Are we falling down a tree? And when we are sort of timbering a tree, they are nagging to us that why are you destroying the nature? Because Seurasaari is located very close to downtown of Helsinki, as at least you guys who have visited the museum, you know that. So we did have very good cooperation with the contractor who was responsible for the work, and no trees were harmed during the construction. All the trees were sort of like protected during this process. Here we can see the entrances, and here is the back entrance to the cottage. Like I said, both doors were really narrow, and there were steps or a small staircase at each entrance. And the doorstep was about 40 centimeters high, the doorstep that was leading into the building. And it wouldn't have been a problem for those visitors who are not using any tools or who are not having mobility problems, but for those who are using some, for example, a wheelchair, it would present a significant barrier. And our solution in that case was to build a ramp which allowed us to improve accessibility while respecting the character of the building. Here in the picture of the right, you can see the ramp. And it was so snowy in Helsinki that I couldn't take good pictures of that place. But as you can see, we also did use some concrete here before the wooden ramp, so it's really easy for those who are using, for example, a wheelchair to enter the building. I'm sorry because of the bad quality of this picture. I had some technical problems, so I'm sorry about the bad quality of that picture. I couldn't find a better one. About the balcony railings, we retained the original balcony railing and we made no changes to it. But instead, we decided to add another railing, which is black. You can see it quite well in this picture. Here is the new railing, and here is the original railings. And the solution we made didn't drastically alter the architecture. And by using black paint, we ensured that the original railing remains more visually prominent than the new one. And about the entrance doors, like I told, the summer cottage is one of the few buildings with a good stable yard, and we have a flat surface with no slopes, but that would not be sufficient for the visitors who are using, for example, a wheelchair. And like I said, the doors to the cottage were quite narrow, and we knew that some changes were necessary to improve the accessibility. And I think we did arrive at a very good solution, so we decided to designate the back door as the accessible entrance to the cottage, and that required some modifications. As you can see from the picture, we did have like sort of a double door. So this is the normal case, but we were able to widen it up a bit. The original door did remain, but we added like an extra piece to here. And you can also turn this part, which normally looks like this. I'm not sure, can you spot the difference, but we had the hinges and we can turn this open, and it made the whole entrance a lot wider. So I'm quite convinced that when we are opening this to public, at least few persons who are using like a wheelchair can enjoy the spot and they can enter the building. And we were able to save the original door. Here is the original door, and here is the situation in Seurasaari, and we made this like extra part that can be opened. And you can see we do have a hand railing also here, which helps those who are climbing into the house. And we do have the handrail also. Here is the original, another angle to get to the balcony of the house, and here is the solution in the museum. So we do have like this black handrail as well. So I think I'm quite happy with these solutions. And when I was asked to introduce some solutions, those were the ones that I decided to show to you. So, conclusions. The examples I have presented are not particularly revolutionary ones, but still I wanted to introduce them for you. And in my work, I need to consider such cases carefully, and I'm trying to listen closely to the staff who is working directly with the museum visitors. And whenever there are like some comments from the visitors, any comments, but especially like accessibility comments, we are listening very carefully about their comments, and I have informed the staff that they should collect all those comments from the museum visitors. And we do have a strong desire to do everything we can to help our guests to enjoy the museum. And ideally, all these solutions that are improving accessibility should be so discreet that very few visitors even notice them. So when you are visiting the museum and you don't notice these solutions, I think we have succeeded quite well with these things. I didn't start to calculate my time, but I think I made it around in 30 minutes. So I suppose I have time like for some questions if you have any of them, and I would like to thank you for listening quite closely what I was explaining to you. Thank you. And I wanted to have, because it's so cold out there, I decided to have this as an end picture of my Latvian colleagues visiting the Seurasaari last summer when it was nice and beautiful weather. Thanks.
Thank you, Mikko, for a wonderful presentation. And hopefully we have some questions in the audience and also online, so please raise your hand.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that there are around 90 buildings altogether, and all this is from 1685. Your slide showed. And what's let's say average age, or what's maybe some general picture? So this cottage is very young. Yeah, it's
yeah.
And what's the spread of age of the buildings which you in general have in your museum?
We have, like I said, most of the buildings are from the 19th century, and practically we have only few buildings which are set, which do have like the 20th century exhibition. We have few from the early 20th century, but the reason why there is the summer cottage is that Seurasaari is telling about the rural culture of Finland. And basically when you are entering the museum, even though you are from the countryside, you will just enter the very ancient atmosphere, and it's more like you don't connect it to the everyday life. So we decided to have the summer cottage because it's something that is common for quite many Finns. They know how to behave in the summer cottage, and it is something about the rural life they nowadays know. So we wanted to bring the museum into the 21st century by bringing the summer cottage to the museum, and I think it will change the dynamics of the museum quite a lot, because Finns do have, almost every Finn has a possibility to visit the summer cottage, and they know how to behave there. And I'm sure that when the families are visiting the summer cottage, they will notice that there are some objects that they do know quite well, and I'm quite convinced that they can sort of have nice moments, like family moments together visiting the cottage. And also Finland is marketed to the tourists as the land of the 1,000 lakes and the land of summer cottages, but normally no tourists are. It's not very easy for a tourist to visit a summer cottage, and now it will change when we have one in the best place in Helsinki to visit. I don't know if I understood correctly your question, but I tried to answer it anyway.
Paldies, Mikko, par brīnišķīgo prezentāciju, īpaši par bildi, kurā mēs izskatāmies ļoti smaidīgi, neparasti ikdienai. Bet mans jautājums ir tāds, lieliski piemēri saistībā ar pieejamību, kāda bija diskusija ar mantojuma sargātājiem, mantojuma glabātāju institūcijām?
Examples, and what were discussions with...
I don't have the translation. So
can you please... The question is about accessibility and your discussion, the museum discussion with national heritage keepers and these institutions. Did you have some, or you just decided to make these accessibility installations for?
So you wanted to know how we decided to make...
Yeah. And did you have discussions with other institutions who is responsible for heritage?
Because we do belong to the we are part of the National Museum of Finland, and actually the National Museum belongs to the Heritage Agency of Finland. It's sort of like an umbrella organization for us. And of course, it's like one of the principles we are having, that whenever we are opening something for the public, it should be as accessible as possible. So basically, it's sort of built inside of our organization that we need to follow those rules. And I think the staff in my organization is quite committed to the fact that all the museums should be accessible ones. And for example, we are not, if somebody is entering the museum with a wheelchair, he or she doesn't have to pay the fee, because basically it's impossible to enter. You can enter only very few buildings if you are using a wheelchair. For example, we have only one sort of elevator, and it's going to the museum shop we are having. So basically, I would say that we would do those alterations anyway, because it's like something we do consider it's very important thing. But it takes a lot of time to make those things, and the hand railings, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but still I'm quite proud that we have made those, because it helps us a lot when we have built them, and we are planning to build new ones, and we are sort of very carefully planning which building will be the next one, which has the worst problems of entering the building, and so on and so on. And of course, we do have other solutions as well. We have some tangible objects for those who cannot see, and we are having guided tours with this very easy Finnish language for those, for the disabled people, or those who are just learning the language, and so on. So it has a lot of fields, the accessibility we are dealing with in the National Museum of Finland.
Okay. Thank you, Mikko, for the presentation.
Okay, thanks for your. Thank you.